Monday, July 19, 2021, Leavenworth Board of Zoning Appeals. We do have all members present, so there is a quorum. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the 21 June meeting. If everyone has had a chance to review it, any comments or changes or a motion to accept?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I will abstain since I wasn't there. No old business, new business. 2021-20, 804 South 4th Street. Staff
Okay.
report, please.
Jackie Porter will handle this.
The applicant and owner, R.E. Proctor, is requesting for a variance of 4.03 C2F to allow an unenclosed porch or stoop to be closer than 15 feet from the property line. The proposed changes are involved there on the south portion of the property for existing structure. So it's an expansion. The property is located at 804 South 4th Street, which is currently zoned high-density single-family residential R16, and the adjacent properties are zoned general business and R16 as well. The proposed location of the covered porch / deck is going to be 6 feet from the front property line. Staff did not receive any comments in regards to this case. Have any questions?
Okay. Any questions from the staff report?
No, sir.
I have one, and it's more of a clarification. The drawing that shows the location of the proposed covered deck shows that it will not extend beyond the front face of the house, which is already inside the easement, but just to confirm, it will not be any further closer to the street than the existing house.
That's correct.
Okay. And there are no other issues that we need to address at this time. It's
That's
just a matter of the variance granted for the easement of the deck.
As close as we can tell, the existing house is about right on the property line, and the proposed deck will be 6 feet back from the property line.
Okay. All right. If there are no other comments or questions, I'll open up the public hearing. So if anybody would like to speak, please come up to the podium and state your name and make your comment.
Thanks, sir. I'm Pat Proctor. I live at 624 Kickapoo, a few houses down from Mr. Bates. So this house, it's built right on the property line, essentially, where the easement is. I don't know the history, but at some point, I think the road was widened and it moved the easement right up against the building. The front door used to be on the 4th Street side, and the porch was inside the easement. And it was in very bad repair. We've taken that off, and we're trying to make it a nicer property. And we felt like exiting and entering from the south side of the house, where you're not, walking right out onto the sidewalk, right onto the busy street, would be a little more pleasant for the residents. And so what we would like to do, what we're asking you to do tonight, is allow us to put a porch and a front door on the south side of the house. This porch would be about 8 feet further away from the road than the original porch, so we're actually getting more within tolerance of the statute or the ordinance than the original porch was, and it will extend out about 8 feet south of the house, so it won't be too close to the alley as people step out. But I think it'll be a lot safer for residents, and it'll just be a lot more aesthetically pleasing than that front door stepping right out onto 4th Street.
Okay.
I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. I do have one other that's sort of associated this. There is no garage associated with it, but we see that there's a pickup truck parked there. Is that where you're basically planning on the parking for that
Yep.
residence?
There's a patch there kind of to the left and south of that, or left and west of that front door for parking. And it's I think whoever owned it before us had used it for parking as well.
Okay, so that'll remain and not
Yeah.
be interfered with the deck and squeeze it up so that,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Is that gravel?
I don't, there's,
Because they dig, I think the city did something
Yeah,
and
they-
all dirt right now.
yeah, so that, the city did some plumbing work, and so right now it's just dirt. I think at one point there was gravel there, but right at this moment there's.
Yeah, I believe that had been a gravel parking pad at one point, and Mr. Proctor is right. The city's done, I believe,
I know they're working on
yeah,
that
the
alley.
sanitary sewer project through there and removed some of that as they were digging it up. But yeah, that had at one point been a gravel parking pad, and so since that was an existing gravel parking area, that can remain a gravel parking area. It's not something new that they're adding.
Okay.
I think what we plan to do, we have a deck built and.
Can I get you to come to the microphone so we can pick you up?
When we build the deck, so we have a room on each side of the deck, we can park the car. Because we have enough room to park the car on each side of the deck. So it could be.
I just asked the question to get the city's position on whether or not they were going to allow you to put gravel down back,
okay.
and they've indicated they are, so
Yeah.
that's all I was
Yeah,
concerned about.
so again, yeah, since that was existing, we don't allow new gravel parking pads, but since that was there,
It's
you know,
grandfathered.
it had kind of been, you know, disturbed with the work the city had done, but they can sort of maintain that area that they'd had.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's all that I had. Anyone else?
I read in here someplace where it's going to be a covered deck.
There will be a roof above the deck. The original deck had a small roof just to protect people from rain as they're opening the door, and we'd like to put a roof over the new deck.
It's
It will
not-
not be enclosed,
It's
though.
not going to be enclosed.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Does anyone else like to speak?
Yeah, yes, my name's Steve Lambeth. I'm doing some work for Reed Proctor. And the roof will be a gabled roof tied into a 9/12 pitch, which is the house roof. So it's not just gonna be a slanted porch style. It'll be a nice, very appealing type roof and porch on the south side. So when the folks come in at 4th Street, instead of seeing, you know, just a little shanty, it'll be a nice looking house.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Susan Pierce. I'm the executor for the Arthur Rubenthal Trust. We own the apartment building across 4th Street. On this, are they going to take away the front door? Because I was on a task force for the city for an overlay district where the entrance on 4th Street and I think part of 7th couldn't face a different way. It had to face the street because of that credit union that got built kind of catty corner. So are they still going to have a front door facing 4th Street?
I don't know that.
Because we
And
did work
honestly,
real hard on that
It
overlay.
doesn't affect the porch.
What?
It doesn't affect the porch unless that's going to be the primary entrance for the house. It will be an entrance for the house, but not the primary.
I can answer the question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
so, I'm a little, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm a little confused about, the issue with the credit union, because the property next door is the Dollar General.
No, I'm talking about why they did the overlay district, because out on 4th Street, the way they built the credit union, they didn't want that anymore on our main streets. So the overlay district makes you have to have your property facing the street, you can't have it sideways.
Okay.
Also, I'm selling this property and I have an affidavit of interest if you need to see it to the Mans, so they should be able to speak on it. They're buying the 801 South Fork. But I was concerned.
Oh, across the
about-
street,
Right,
across the street.
the 4th and all beyond Farmerville. I hold the deed, but they're buying it.
Okay.
But yeah, I wondered about that front door because of that overlay district. That's our entrance into Leavenworth and into downtown.
city staff,
City
help me
staff
out. What,
Help out?
I'm not familiar with that. I'm not sure when that would have been, when that was discussed. That's not part of our current design regulations that are part of the adopted development regulations. I would suspect though, again, I'm not familiar with exactly what she's referring to, but I would suspect that that may have been in regards to new structures. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the task force that she's talking about.
but that would be a different issue than what we're dealing with, because we're only dealing with the porch.
Yeah, we're not talking
On the
about,
south
yeah,
side.
the issue for the Board of Zoning Appeals is not the location of a front door.
Or
It's
anything
just-
else that's
no,
being done
it's
with the house.
just the setback of the proposed porch.
Okay, so ma'am, I think you need to take that up with the city, because all we're addressing is the porch.
So we have to go by the city regulations though?
Well, for the Board of Zoning Appeals, the only issue that they're able to consider when they have an application before them is the section that the applicant is requesting a variance from, which is the section regarding the setback for a porch.
Right.
So it won't be a main entrance to that.
We're not even addressing that as a part of this variance request. Does anyone else have a question or want to make a statement? Okay, if not, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and discussion amongst the board members.
I have a question. On that topic, though. The issue of the front door facing Fourth Street, is that a part of the development regulations?
It's not a part of the development regulations. I know at some point, a number of years ago, there had been an overlay district discussed as part of Fourth Street, but it's not part of our current regulations. So I'm not sure kind of at what point that all
And the planning board
transpired.
would adopt that, correct?
Something like that would typically be reviewed by planning commission, and then adopted
By
through
city ordinance, by the
through a city
commissioners.
commission, yeah.
Okay.
So typically, I wouldn't think you would have to have a site plan review for something like this, or would you?
No, so the reason this even came up, is the Proctors had purchased this property and we're in the process of rehabbing it. If you'll recall, previously just to the north of this, there was that two-story brown, multifamily structure that burned several years ago and then was demolished. And so this is actually on the same lot that multifamily building was on. And so it's been sitting in vacant and in disrepair for a number of years, and the Proctors had purchased it and started working on it and came in for their building permits. And so just in our review of their building permits, we noticed the issue with the porch. But no, typically for something like this, we wouldn't be looking at a site plan.
Yeah, and that's
For
all,
that review.
my point was just, if the front door was an issue and it was in an overlay district, that's probably where that would get looked at, but since there's not one.
Yeah, it's not a site plan review
Right.
type project. So again, I would suspect something like that would apply for new property, new structures.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is the city considering paving that alley in the next decade or so?
Not that I'm aware of, or.
Well,
Well,
Yeah,
the city's working on it right now and putting some holes in it, so I guess it's a
Yeah,
matter
so
of,
the city
fixing it.
isn't going through and routinely paving alleys. If we're doing work in an alley,
Patch it.
we kind of patch it up. I'm honestly not sure if the work in this part is done. I think it is, but when the city does work in alleys with utilities and such, we'll patch it, but the city doesn't typically come through and repave the entire alley. It's just kind of basic maintenance.
Okay.
it's kind of a difficult alley to get out of going on to Fourth Street.
Very.
And it does go all the way through to Fifth.
Yeah.
Sure.
That alley, yeah.
But
But yeah,
if
it's a
you're
little
coming
easier to
the
go
other
over to
way-
Fifth, yeah.
Mr. Bogner, I had a question, but is it too late to put that to our people who have offered testimony? Or,
Since it's not part of the action that's being presented to us to review, I would suggest they take it to the planning board.
With the overlay district, or what was the question?
no, I actually just had a question. One woman got up and offered, or asked a question about other regulations in the planning guidance.
Yeah, so we'll look into that. It doesn't really apply to, again, the setback for the porch, so Jackie and I will certainly look into that tomorrow. We hadn't heard, that concern before. Nobody had contacted us prior to tonight with that question, so we'll look into that. And that would definitely be something that we can address with a building permit, if there's something in place that's applicable, but it's not really applicable to the setback request for the porch. Because you're not approving a setback based on a certain reason they're building the porch. You're not looking at, okay, well, they're turning this into a front porch. You're just looking at the setback for that porch. And so we'll take a look into that. And then if there is some sort of overlay regulations that we weren't aware of that had been put in place at some point in the past, that's something that we can address prior to the issuance of a building permit, because the building permit has not been issued for this porch yet. And just because the Board of Zoning Appeals approves a variance doesn't mean that then that building permit necessarily has to be approved. There may be other issues that need to be reviewed with that.
Then additionally, a follow-on question would be, are there any property owners here who are adjacent to or across from that property that is, for which the variance is being sought, who oppose the building of the porch onto the building at that place or at that position of the structure? I think that's answers my question. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, I own World 5, that's right next door, and I've got absolutely no problem with it, whatever they're proposing. I think that they've done a really good job of what they've been doing over there to restore that building. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Patrick Swift.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
No further questions.
You know,
All right.
if we're still gonna have a front door on 4th Street, and that side is not completely closed,
I think Mr. Proctor said they were closing it. Is that right, Mr. Proctor? I think you said you were closing that door.
We intend to close that entrance.
Yeah.
It's just not safe. You
No,
step
it-
out and you're like, right there in the road.
People can
Yeah.
ride a bike and hit you, so
Yeah.
you walk out
I,
front door.
I heard it both ways, that's all right.
Okay.
Okay.
But the windows will still be there,
Yeah,
correct? Yes,
yeah,
it's not just gonna be a
yeah.
blank.
Actually, a good question. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Well, no further discussion. We'll go into the review of the ordinance. A request for a variance may be granted upon the finding of the board that all the following conditions have been met. The board shall make a determination on each condition, and the findings shall be entered into the record. That the variance requested, the first one, that the variance requested arises from such condition which is unique to the property in question and is not ordinarily found in the same zone or district, and is not created by an action or actions of the property owner or the applicant. Commissioner Kim?
I'd agree. I think because of the exceptional narrowness of this property and the easements that have moved over time, that I think I would agree with this statement.
I would agree with it.
And for the same reasons I do as well.
Agree.
Agree.
Okay. Second, that the granting of the permit for the variance will not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. We'll just continue to go the same order.
Sure. Agree.
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 Agree. Agree.
That the strict application of the provisions of the development regulations from which the variance is requested will constitute unnecessary hardship upon the property owner represented in the application.
Agree.
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 That the variance desired will not adversely affect the public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare.
Agree.
I agree.
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 And lastly, that granting of the variance desired will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the development regulations.
Agree.
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 Based on the findings, the board is in favor of granting the variance. In granting the variance, the board may impose such conditions, safeguards, and restrictions upon the premises benefited by the variance as may be necessary to reduce or minimize any potentially injurious effect of such variance upon other property in the neighborhood and to carry out the general purpose and intent of the development regulations. Are there any such conditions, safeguards, or restrictions that the board wishes to add? Seeing none,
Nope.
the variance is granted as requested. And there is no other business?
Nope. Michelle, do we have anything for next month? Yes. Okay, so we do have a meeting next month.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.